They say gold is old-fashioned, a relic of the past, something your grandfather used to talk about when he said, "Money used to mean something." But what if I told you the world's richest people are quietly moving billions into gold right now, while the media talks about AI, crypto, and tech stocks? A different story is unfolding behind closed vault doors. In private meetings, family offices, the ones that manage generational wealth, are buying up physical gold at a rate we haven't seen in decades. Why? What do they know that most people don't? Today, we're uncovering the real reason millionaires are buying gold right now. And once you see the full picture, you might never look at money the same way again. The illusion of money. Narrator, let's start with a simple but uncomfortable truth. Money, the thing you work for, save, and spend your entire life chasing, isn't real. Not anymore. For centuries, paper money was backed by something tangible. Gold. Every dollar, pound, or yen was once a promise that you could exchange it for a fixed amount of gold stored in a government vault. It was the foundation of trust. It made global trade possible. It made people believe in their governments, but that promise was broken. In 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard. Overnight, the dollar was no longer tied to gold. It became what's called fiat money, backed by nothing but government confidence. That one decision changed everything, because now money could be printed at will. And over time, that's exactly what happened. The age of easy money. Central banks printing. 2008 financial crisis. Stimulus checks. COVID-era relief funds. Fast forward to the last few decades, a period economists call the age of easy money. Whenever the economy stumbled, from the dot-com crash to the 2008 housing collapse, central banks had one solution: print. More. Money. Trillions of dollars were injected into the system to keep it afloat. It worked. For a while. Stock markets soared. Tech billionaires were born. And the rich got richer. But the system had a hidden flaw. The more money that was created, the less each dollar was worth. Side by side, grocery store prices 2000 versus 2024. In 2000, $1 could buy you a loaf of bread. Today, you need nearly $3. That's not progress. That's inflation. The silent tax that eats your savings without asking. And if you're wondering why millionaires are buying gold, it's because they know how this story ends. The golden constant historical montage. Ancient coins, Roman trade routes, 19th century gold rush, modern gold vaults. Narrator, gold isn't new. It's the oldest form of money the world has ever known. For over 5,000 years, gold has outlasted empires, revolutions, and currencies. The Roman denarius, the British pound, the German mark, all rose and fell. But gold remained. Why? Because gold is finite. You can't print it, duplicate it, or hack it. Every ounce ever mined still exists today, stored, traded, or hidden away. That scarcity gives it power. Economists call gold the golden constant. When paper currencies lose value, gold doesn't rise. It simply reveals how much your money has fallen. That's why throughout history, from the fall of Rome to hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, people fled to gold when trust in money disappeared. And today, that flight is starting again. The new gold rush, 2020 to 2025. Central banks, inflation headlines, interest rate charts, global trade tensions. In 2020, something broke. When COVID-19 hit, global governments printed over $20 trillion to keep economies alive. For a while, it looked like a miracle. Markets recovered, unemployment dropped, and stimulus checks kept people afloat. But the hidden cost arrived in 2022, record inflation. Prices for food, fuel, and housing exploded. People began questioning, What is my money really worth? And quietly, behind the headlines, the world's wealthiest investors began making a move. Charts showing record gold purchases by central banks and investors. In 2023, central banks bought more gold than in any year since 1967. Countries like China, Russia, and India led the charge, stockpiling gold instead of US dollars. At the same time, private investors, especially high-net-worth individuals, increased their gold holdings by double digits. Why now? Because history repeats, and the signals are flashing red. The cracks in the dollar empire U.S. debt clock, global trade data, dollar share of global reserves. For decades, the U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency. It's the lifeblood of global trade. The reason oil, steel, and tech are priced in dollars, but the foundation is weakening. The United States now owes over $34 trillion in national debt, more than its entire GDP. That means every dollar printed is backed by a promise that's harder and harder to keep. Foreign nations have noticed. In 2000, the dollar made up 70% of global reserves. By 2024, closer to 55%. That's a slow but steady de-dollarization. And what are countries buying instead? You guessed it, gold. Gold doesn't depend on Washington. It doesn't default. It doesn't need faith. Just wait. To the wealthy, this isn't paranoia. It's hedging against a global shift. They're not betting on gold's rise. They're betting on the dollar's decline. Gold versus everything else. Crypto volatility charts, real estate market bubbles, stock graphs. Let's compare gold to everything else the rich can buy. Stocks? High returns, but tied to fragile economies and political cycles. Real estate? Valuable, yes, but illiquid and heavily taxed. Cryptocurrency? Exciting, but unstable. In 2021, Bitcoin was $68,000. A year later, half that. Gold, on the other hand, doesn't promise huge gains. It promises preservation. Over the last century, gold has maintained its purchasing power through wars, depressions, and crashes. If you held $10,000 in cash since 1971, it would buy you a fraction of what it once did. But $10,000 worth of gold? Roughly the same buying power, or even more. That's why, in every financial storm, gold becomes the lifeboat for those who can afford one. The hidden accumulators. Who's really buying? Billionaire boardrooms, sovereign vaults, private jets landing in Zurich. So, who's actually buying all this gold? It's not retail investors. It's family offices, sovereign funds, and the ultra-wealthy. Reports show that nearly 1 in 4 millionaires increased their gold allocation in the past year. Many are storing it in private vaults in Switzerland, Singapore, and Dubai. Even institutions are joining in. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and BlackRock have quietly expanded gold-related funds and holdings. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of the biggest buyers aren't even from the West. China, for example, has been secretly adding to its gold reserves every month since 2022. A move experts see as preparation for a post-dollar world. Russia, facing sanctions, has turned to gold as a parallel financial system. And countries across the Middle East are following suit, converting oil wealth into physical gold. A hard asset immune to currency politics. To put it simply, the rich are preparing for a reset. The economic ticking clock. Interest rate hikes, cost of living protests, financial news footage. Every financial era ends the same way. With too much debt, too much printing, and too little trust. We're nearing that point again. Global debt has surpassed $300 trillion. Interest rates are rising. Governments are struggling to service loans while keeping economies alive. At some point, something has to give. Maybe it's a currency crisis. Maybe it's a market collapse. Maybe it's a silent erosion of savings over time. The rich aren't waiting to find out. They're already positioning themselves where history says safety lies, outside the system. And that system is looking fragile. History's echo, the lessons of collapse. Weimar Germany, hyperinflation, 1990s, Argentina crisis, 2008 Wall Street footage. To understand the future, look to the past. In Weimar Germany, 1923, citizens carried cash in wheelbarrows. A loaf of bread cost millions of marks. Those who owned gold kept their wealth. Everyone else lost everything. In Argentina, 1998, currency collapse wiped out savings overnight. Gold and the US dollar became the real money on the street. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, gold prices surged 166% over 5 years while major banks collapsed. In every economic breakdown, gold re-emerged, not as an investment, but as the fallback currency of human trust. And if you think it can't happen again, remember, every empire believes it's the exception. Until it's not. The modern triggers. Why now? BRICS summit, global trade disputes, digital currency launches. So why are millionaires buying gold now, in 2025? Because the warning signs are aligning all at once. Rising debt, de-dollarization, geopolitical conflict, banking instability, and the coming wave of digital currencies. The world is shifting toward central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, programmable money controlled by governments. To some, it's innovation. To others, it's control. If cash disappears and digital money becomes the only option, your financial freedom could depend on owning assets outside that system. Gold is one of the last ones left. It's not trackable, not digital, not dependent on an app or policy. In a future of financial surveillance, gold represents something deeply human: autonomy. And the wealthy understand that better than anyone. The pattern returns clock, turning backward through centuries. Gold coins, markets, wars, collapses. Every century has its cycle. A rise of trust, a boom of paper wealth, and a collapse back into hard assets. The pattern is older than capitalism itself. In the 1600s, the Dutch tulip bubble ended in gold.
In the 1700s, the French paper money experiment ended in gold. In the 1900s, the Great Depression and World War II ended with gold revalued. And now, in the 21st century, after decades of debt, printing and digital speculation, we are once again returning to gold. It's not nostalgia, it's mathematics. And millionaires are simply reading the equation. The real reason unveiled. Close-up of gold bars being stored in vaults, montage of currency collapses. So what's the real reason millionaires are buying gold right now? It's not just about inflation. It's not just about profit. It's about control, the control of value in a system where everything else is controlled for you. In a world of digital dependence, gold is one of the few assets that remains outside the algorithm. No password, no permission, no central authority. It's wealth in its most ancient, unchanging form, and that's exactly why the modern elite are returning to it. They're not predicting the end of the world. They're preparing for the end of an era. What it means for you. Everyday people shopping, paying bills, saving money, contrasted with vaults and gold coins. You don't need millions to learn from millionaires. What they're doing today reveals what's coming tomorrow. If the wealthiest people are moving into real assets, it's a signal, not a coincidence. It means they're expecting turbulence. And when that turbulence comes, paper wealth can vanish overnight. But tangible assets, gold, silver, land, hold their own gravity. The question isn't whether you should buy gold. It's whether you understand why others already are. Because in every financial reset, there are only two kinds of people. Those who see it coming and those who ask later, how did no one warn us? 3 takeaways. Calm music. Visual summary of lessons. Let's end with 3 clear takeaways. First, money is only as real as the trust behind it, and that trust is fading. Inflation, debt, and politics are eroding the value of fiat currency faster than ever. Second, gold isn't a bet against progress. It's a shield against uncertainty. It's the one form of money that doesn't rely on anyone's promise. And third, when the wealthiest people in the world start preparing for something, it's not panic, it's pattern recognition. The question is, will you recognize it too? A warning and a thought. The world spinning slowly, vault doors closing. Every empire, every economy, every era believes it will last forever. But history whispers otherwise. Gold doesn't promise a fortune. It promises freedom from the systems that rise and fall with human mistakes. Maybe that's why, as the world goes digital and uncertain, the richest among us are turning back to something ancient. Because sometimes, to understand the future, you have to hold a piece of the past. If you found this story eye-opening, help it reach more people. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video because most people still believe the system is unshakable. But as we've seen, it never is.